Hey everybody, and welcome back to the 360 Player YouTube channel, the all-in-one sports platform. In this video, we're going to talk about 3 great setups for small-sided games. These are the 3 most common versions of small-sided games, and of course, you can always vary the numbers for each one of these setups, but what are small-sided games? Basically, small-sided games are like full-sized games, but on a more small scale with less players. And why are small-sided games so great? It allows players to get more touches on the ball. Because if you're playing a full-sized 11 versus 11 game, the actual touches on the ball that each player gets is going to be very, very minimal. If you study even the best players in the world, in a 90-minute match, they might have the ball at their feet for around a minute, would actually be a lot. So when it comes to actually developing players, small-sided games can be very, very useful. Also, when teaching tactical concepts, it can be tougher to implement and have players visualize on a large scale 11 versus 11. Whereas if you want to teach the fundamentals and the basic building blocks of the tactics that you want to implement, it can sometimes be easier to do that on a smaller scale, small-sided game, so that players can learn those skills and then translate it to a full-size game. So before we jump into the 3 main types of small-sided games, what are some good considerations when creating the actual pitches and playing fields for your small-sided game? Size is a huge consideration. Keep in mind, if you have a very large pitch, players are going to have to run more, and they're also going to have more time and space when the ball comes to them. If you want players to operate under pressure and in tight spaces, it can be better to make the field much, much smaller. That's going to force players to work more on those technical aspects. They might not have to run as much in that tighter space, but they're going to have less time when the ball comes to them because they're going to be under pressure more quickly. So keep those factors in mind when actually designing the size of the pitch. Also, the setup. There can be a lot of different ways to set these up, as you guys will see in these 3 types that I'm about to mention. But when setting this up, you can have even teams of, say, 4 versus 4, 5 versus 5, 6 versus 6. Those are all common numbers for small-sided games. So you want to pick a number that is conducive to the types of tactics and things that you're trying to teach and trying to implement. Maybe you're teaching offensive attacking concepts and stretching the defense, so you want to be able to have length, width, and depth with your players. So you'll want to have at least 4 players in a small-sided game setup where you're working on this concept, because you want one player to go long to push that last defender back. You want to have 2 players that can split out wide and 1 player to drop deep. That would be the minimum to work on that specific concept. In addition, you may want to include neutral or all-time offense type of players. If you want your teams to be working on possessing the ball, it can really help to have 1 player or 2 players that are all-time offense to give the players a numerical superiority when they have the ball. When you have more players on offense than what the defense has, there's going to be more free players, and this way it's easier for a team to maintain possession, and this can be a really, really good way to help players have some more offensive success if you're trying to work on offensive play. The first small-sided game setup that I want to mention is a mini field with 2 large goals. This can work well from as low as 4 versus 4 all the way up to 6 versus 6, 7v7, or even higher. And basically, the great thing about this is that both sides are going to have a large goal with a goalkeeper, and so it's great for players to work on finishing. The smaller the teams are in this setup, the more opportunities players are going to get to actually get shots in on goal. So this could be a great setup where you say each team takes 2 or 3 strikers, and then you put them on the field against each other. There's going to be a lot of back and forth action, a lot of practices and chances to finish on goal. This is also the version which is most similar to a full field 11 versus 11, because both sides do have a large goal. So depending on the number of players that you have, you can implement different tactics where they're defending a large goal in the middle, and that's going to most replicate a real match. The second, and maybe my favorite version of a small-sided game, is a mini field with mini goals. There's all types of mini goals depending on what kind of mini goals you have. You could use cones, you could use pug goals, you could use bazooka goals. There's all sorts of different companies that produce mini goals, but the idea is that you have smaller goals without a goalkeeper instead of a large goal. And a common way to do this is to have 2 mini goals on each side of the field. You could do this with 1 mini goal on each side of the field. You could do it with 3 mini goals on each side of the field, but I think the most common is to have 2 on each side. And the nice thing about this is that attackers can work on switching the field of play. They can be building up an attack towards one side and then switch the ball through the middle and go to the opposite side. This can be a great setup to help your team learn how to move the ball from one side of the field to the other, and especially in situations where players need to work the ball through the middle of the field in a full-sided game. This setup can work great with 3v3, 4v4, 5v5, or even 6v6, depending on the space that you have. And the third variation of a small-sided game is the half-field attack sort of setup. This is the most tactical of the 3 versions that I'm describing to you, and it's really good for teaching players how to break down a defense in the final third. Basically, you have one group starting with the ball that's attacking towards a large goal on the opposite side with a goalkeeper, and the team that is defending, they either have to dribble across the end line on the opposite side, or you could set up mini goals on the opposite side. But the emphasis on this version is that dynamic of the attacking team versus the defending team. So this can be a great way to have your forwards against your defenders or something like that, and have the forwards work on breaking down, combination play, all of these sorts of things to attack in the final third, whereas the defenders need to hold them off and just win possession of the ball back. You could do this drill in waves, where you could have groups of 4 that are attacking wave after wave, so when the ball goes out of play, the next group comes in right away, or you could just do it in more of a free-flowing sort of way. When the ball goes out of bounds, do a quick throw-in or kick-in and resume the game from there. One variation that's very, very common is that when the ball goes out of play, you have the attacking team start with a new ball at the top of the grid so that they can continue to work on this dynamic of attacking against the large goal. One really cool wrinkle that you can throw into all 3 versions of these small-sided games is to have some space for the wingers, where you can have all-time offensive players on the wings so that teams in the middle can play the ball out and the wingers can cross the ball in. This can be a great way to implement some finishing practice from finishing off of crosses when the ball is out in the wide areas. With that being said, guys, I hope you're incorporating small-sided games into your training sessions. Not only are they great for player development and teaching tactics and technical skills, but they're also super fun, because why do we play the sport to begin with? You love to compete, you love to try to beat that other team. And so I definitely recommend taking some of these ideas, incorporating them, and putting different twists on them. And if you want a ton more fresh ideas and training content, you should check out the 360 Player app, because in the 360 Player app, we have hundreds of drills and sessions that are ready-made, and you can also create your own drills and sessions and save them and share them with your team, with your club. We have libraries for personal, team, and club, so it's very, very easy to structure all of your content and share it within the people in your organization. And 360 Player is not just a training planner tool. We are the all-in-one solution for clubs with things like payment solutions, video and performance analysis, statistics, messaging and communication, everything a club needs to succeed inside one platform. If you want to find out more about 360 Player, check out the links below. Thanks so much for watching this video, and we'll see you in another video.